right, come one, come all, and welcome to the most anticipated AMA of the Play to Earn history. Good morning and good afternoon, Brawlerverse. I'm your host, Tommy from Wax. To my immediate right, we have Snazzy, who will be joining our audience to put our contestants through the ringer. Please submit your requests and bring a trash can or chair with your questions. And now it is time. Everyone who is tuned into the space below, please put those hands and hearts up in the air to welcome our champion to the ring. Introducing first, standing tall at a whopping 6'4", we have the legendary, big brain, FUD crushing Chief Gaming Officer of Wax Game Studios himself, MikeRubinelli. And on the other side of the ring, we have the muscle man himself, rippling with thoughts and big ideas, project manager of the Wax blockchain, the world famous Lee Jenkins.
All right.
Wow. Holy cow, what an intro. Lee, I don't know how we live up to that, but let's do our best.
Absolutely.
I'm sure you all will be fantastic. Thank you for joining us. I think this is going to be an awesome AMA. And I know that there has been a lot of game changes since the last AMA that we've held. We have a couple of things that we want to talk about first, which would be the burn event. So tell me, you guys, why did you choose 1 billion tokens?
Well, why not 1 billion tokens? Seems like a nice number, but it, we were hoping to make a big splash with it. We wanted it to be a very, very meaningful change to the tokenomics, right? So nothing's more meaningful than wiping out 3 zeros, right? You benchmark it against some other games out there. I mean, Sandbox, their current circulating supply is right around 1 billion. It also, based on the rates of mining that were happening, it put us right around the number of remaining months we wanted to see in the mining event until we start pushing out the PvP phase. And so, it was just a combination of kind of what felt like the right supply, we felt would make a big splash with this, I think, very positive development in changing the tokenomics in a way that we think would be very appealing to the crypto community, and just lining everything up for how we want this to roll out from phase to phase.
Yeah, Lee, and I think I'd like to add to that. I think that was a great answer. I think 1 billion tokens can be hard for people to wrap their heads around if they don't understand, or the race to mine 1 billion tokens. It can be hard to wrap your head around in terms of urgency and how long it's going to take. Those are a lot of the questions that we see in channel constantly, and they're all kind of very fair questions. Within the next kind of 3 weeks or so, we're going to roll out an in-game kind of countdown to 0. So players know exactly kind of how many tokens have been mined, and they can see how close we are to hitting 0. We want to do it for kind of 2 reasons. We want them to understand there's progression towards the cap, but we also want them to understand there should be urgency, and that PvP, which we think is going to be unbelievably compelling, which we'll get into here in a little bit, they'll understand kind of how close we are to hitting that mark.
Absolutely.
I love that. With the urgency that you stated earlier, what's something that players could do now to really capitalize on this burn that's happened?
Well, I mean, what this means is that the resources for a PvP in terms of gold and brawl are going to be capped. So if you want resources for PvP, now's the time to get them, right? And PvP, like we also mentioned in our release, I mean, it's being developed by one of the most famous game designers of all time. So it's going to be a highly elevated experience. We're not just throwing stuff out there. I mean, this project has always been top quality, from the quality of the NFTs and art to the quality of the initial, go-to-market product, which, is a clicker, but as Mike has been saying all along, PvP is where it's headed, and now we've really made that very clear by clarifying the mining phase versus the PvP phase, etc. And so, you're going to have a game out there from one of the world's most famous game designers, a little bit later this year. And here you have an opportunity to mine the resources that are going to be necessary for that game. So I think that should give people a bit of a sense of urgency to get it while you can. Because, look at some of these other game projects out there that have bigger supplies, right? Axie, Gala Games, you're talking about, some of those companies have supplies that are many, many times this billion tokens that we now are going to have for blockchain brawlers. And so it's going to go quickly, this mining event. Before you know it, those months will tick down and the billion tokens will be out there, and then we'll be pushing out PvP mode. And, so you don't have a lot of time to put your stake in the ground to have a piece of the resources that'll be needed for what's going to be, perhaps one of the most exciting developments in blockchain gaming to date. This is Richard Garfield, right? This is the creator of Magic the Gathering coming into the play to earn space with blockchain brawlers, which is quite exciting. So, and I think our community should be pretty pumped up about it, and they should want to have their resources ready to play.
Yeah, and I think a couple points to add to that is, like Lee said, and I know not everybody consumes all the content we put out there all the time, because we put out a ton of content, whether it's Medium articles or it's live streams I do, interviews, what have you. We've been really consistent from day one, which is kind of like early January. We've been saying that what you get on the first day this game is live and what it wants to be is very, very different. And we've been consistent with that message throughout. And the initial kind of mining event that Lee spoke about, attracts a certain type of player. But we've also done, I think, a good job of kind of articulating that and showing that this is not what the standard kind of, paradigm for gaming it wants to be. Like, this is very highly produced. This is very well kind of intended in messaging or what have you. And so we've always said, keep an eye on PvP, because that's where this game really, really, really shines. And so we've been building these things and building towards this point for a really, really long time. And the thing on the mining event, which is really interesting that people need to pay attention to, is that, we did a shift, which we should talk about next, kind of the buffing Colt and nerfing Scotty, in that we wanted to show a real desire towards accumulating brawl and a progression of your roster. Like, if you want to have success long-term in this product and want to really kind of dominate kind of the PvP phases, you've got to have a better roster. You've got to have stronger brawlers. You've got to generate more brawl. And so what we think is going to happen is the net brawl event or mining is going to tick along for a certain amount of time. But as more Colts come into the environment, the amount of brawl that gets generated is going to exponentially, kind of spike up. So it's like, oh, wow, we have 6 months. Well, maybe, but in 3 months, you may realize you only have 1 month kind of thing, like, because we think there's going to be a real kind of bend to the curve. So don't just sit back and think like, oh, I'll just get while I can, as much as I can, for as long as I can. In reality, I think this is going to go fairly quickly at the end. And we're going to watch that, and we're going to see, and we're going to try to make sure that we always communicate everything to the players that they need to know.
I think it's a fairly interesting point, especially because I know that buffs and nerfs have recently come out, especially with the buff to Colt and the nerf to Scotty. What were you guys thinking there in terms of long-term effects?
Yeah, it's funny, and and we get beaten up a little bit in the community over this. And we've always said we didn't know how the community was going to perform. We had our ideal scenarios. We had our kind of different kind of pessimistic, expected, and optimistic scenarios. But nowhere did we think that players would just take this asset and keep it all to themselves. We thought they'd want to help us build the community, which was wrong. We thought that they would want to kind of progress their own rosters, which was wrong. What they did is they found a Scotty kind of exploit, and they kind of, not even doubled down on it. They like quintupled down on it. And so we didn't anticipate that. We wanted that to be a nice entry point for starting players. We kept performance high. We kept the cost to get Scotty low-ish and more in line with kind of attracting new players. And we did have a lot of new players come in early, and it was nice to see. But then what happened is we reached a tipping point in terms of kind of brawl and gold generated, and kind of just these Scotty farms became a thing. And it was really detrimental to the long-term health. And so when players came in and said, how dare you? It's like, well, do you want to have a game that's running in 6 months? Or do you want to have a game that's dead in like 6 weeks? And they're like, how dare you? I'm like, okay, I understand where your motivations are, which is where a lot of people's motivations were. So, look, shame on us. We probably should have anticipated that better and maybe acted a little bit quicker. But within 3 weeks, making that kind of shift we think was important. And for everybody who said, you're ruining the game, everybody's going to quit, like, people aren't quitting. Like, our audience growth is not accelerating, but it's also not declining rapidly. It's fairly stable. And so we think that's a good sign. We think that people understand what we did and why we did it. And for that, again, it's funny. A lot of people kind of, jump up and down and yell and scream and table flip. But when you look at the numbers, they're very different from what the narratives are that are being crafted. And so we react on data, not on necessarily on player, one player really, really being super angry. Like, we're sorry and we get it. But, we have to be informed by the data.
But it's really interesting that you say that, because I think that whenever people use the Scotties as an exploit strategy, I think it would translate really well whenever you do implement PvP, because that's a big brain move. Like, that was something that I know a lot of people probably wouldn't have foreseen.
Yeah, look, and we're going to get a lot of questions around kind of PvP and how do my NFTs relate. And I will tell you right now that I don't know the answer to that, because that's going to be a question of balance. And so we will say kind of directionally that NFTs and PvP will matter. What the impact is and kind of how to optimize your roster is all to be determined, because we're very much going through a balancing phase. And if you can appreciate from somebody like Richard Garfield, who built Magic the Gathering, like, balancing is a really, really hard thing to do from a player-to-player skill-based game. And we had engaged him around the topic and conversation around building a tradable card game for brawlers, which makes a ton of sense and it works really well in this space and whatnot. He goes, that's all well and good. He said, for me to give you a really robust, or even maybe kind of lightly robust tradable card game, that's kind of 12 to 15 months just in balancing. He said, forget, card design, forget kind of unique packs, forget all these things, just the balance, the back and forth, the fairness of it all, and to go through all the matrix style, this meta versus that meta is really, really involved. He said, so if you guys have, kind of 12 to 15 months to roll out a PvP, we should talk about that. I'm like, well, we actually don't. We want to get something out sooner rather than later, something that's broadly consumable, something that's easy to understand, but involves risk, involves strategy, involves skill, involves people, constructing a plan of attack, and then the ability to execute against that plan is where they win or lose. And so, yeah.
Interesting. I am very excited too about your announcement of factions. Can you kind of go over briefly what kind of ideas you have for the factions?
Yeah, we should take a step back and again sort of talk about, we wanted to give people things to do that weren't just mining during this mining phase. Ironically, we wanted to give them things that were community based, that were asynchronous competitions. We wanted to give them ladder play. We wanted to give all these things that make it feel like there's more engagements than just I show up, I click, I brawl, I win, I do that again, 59 and a half minutes later. And so we are in the process of building the foundation and the infrastructure and the plumbing that allows us to run competitions tied to actions in game, not necessarily just mining. And one of those things that we know works really well is community-based play, and people love to compete together as a group. And so factions, or in wrestling parlance, as we've talked about in the announcement this week, stables is what they call them in the wrestling world. Most players know them as guilds or link shells. We want to allow people to say, hey, I like you and you like me, and let's do this together. And so we're going to create the ability for people to kind of build a faction, name a faction, compete as a faction, win as a faction, be rewarded as a faction. And faction versus faction versus faction is something that's very much on our minds. And, we're going to roll that out at some point in June. Kind of what the competitions are and what the rewards and prizes are is to be determined. But the larger point is we want to give people something to do, something to talk about, something to engage in that is more than just I click and I mine and I repeat. Because we understand what that is and the appeal of it, but we also know that it's limited, and we want to give you something else to engage you while we build this really cool PvP mechanic.
I really see an opportunity here for other collections that have something such as like profile picture collections that have a big community to come in and play your game as a community. I see factions being a way to collaborate different collections on the blockchain. And I think this is going to be something I'm going to implement in my own community for the Schnazzy E-Girls, just because we have a lot of players that are highly invested in blockchain brawlers, because it is going to be such a game changer for the play to earn space.
Well,
I mean, I think a big part of this
go ahead.
is long-term thinking versus short-term thinking, right? I think far too much of the crypto space in general is short-term thinking. And we really want that to change. I think our approach to Wax has always been very long-term, which is why, we now have the most robust ecosystem, I think, of any blockchain in the entire blockchain industry. We always take the long view, and at some point, long views are going to prevail. I know short-term views often dominate crypto, but that can't last forever. And so just like our approach to Wax was very much the long view of how do we build a very robust ecosystem, that's the approach to our gaming products. And so when you look at something like blockchain brawlers, just these simple mining clickers, they don't have very long shelf lives. We've already been watching that. But it is a good way to get tokens into the hands of players, which is why a limited mining event like we've done makes a lot of sense. But it has to turn into something greater. And it's similar to PvP collections. There are so many PvP collections now that you also need your PvP collections to turn into something more longer term. And so our approach is always about how do we add more and more and more utility. And so PvP has always needed to be a part of brawlers because otherwise clickers just have an expiration date. I think what we've seen in terms of dumping of resources so far has been, frankly, a little disheartening. But I still think our long-term view is the right one, and it will prevail because in not too many months, there's no new supply. It's fixed. And then we have a high-quality game for people to play that will need those resources. So, that's taking the long view. And I think the same thing will apply to all the other game products we're working on that we'll be announcing to the community soon.
Yeah, I think Lee raises a great point that the dumping is disheartening, but yet we understand it. Like so many projects have burned so many players, and they have a lot of scar tissue, and they sort of figure like, well, I better get while I can, right? And this opportunity is fleeting, and on and on and on. And we've always said we're taking a long lens approach. We actually don't look at the token price. We don't look at the marketplace pricing that much. Like we want to build an amazing game that engages players for many, many years to come. And so when people come in and say, oh my God, this is happening. Oh my God, that's happening. And they're panicked. Like, yeah, I get it. Other projects would be panicked by that news because they don't have any answers or solutions on how to arrest declines or how to, provide a content roadmap that's super meaningful and super engaging that, gives players reasons to come in for other than an ROI. But we absolutely are focused on non-ROI activities. We find that if we engage the community and we give you NFTs with utility, and that utilization of that NFT allows you to make different interesting, deep choices, then you come here and you stay here for more than an ROI. Like that's so important to us, is building a game that is so unbelievably fun to play that if you're not playing it, you're missing out. Like you're not part of the conversation anymore. Like, well, gee, I just want to mine. I'm like, okay, great. Go play DeFi mining, right? Like there's all kinds of things you can do where you can mine a currency, and God bless, those are great things. If you want to come in though and put your wits on the line against somebody else, and you want to see who's the biggest, baddest gamer in the blockchain brawler universe, this is the place for you. Right. And I'm sorry that other projects rug pulled maybe, and you're hurt by that. We can't help that. We're going to build an incredible game. It's going to be a ton of fun, and we want you to be a part of that long term.
Yeah. And I would say ROI is always a focus in crypto, and it is a focus with brawlers as well. But I think it's not short-term ROI, it's long-term ROI, right? And, so as we're talking about the supply getting capped in a mere number of months, and then this incredible game experience coming out that requires those supplies, that sets up, a long-term view of ROI as opposed to, sometimes you watch a crypto community and it's literally people are talking about their ROI literally from second to second. It's like, oh my God, this just happened. What's my ROI now at this exact second in time? And, that's a little bit of a short-term view, I'd say, right? And so I think taking the long view of creating an experience that's fun and that, based on that, where you can see that there's a fixed number of resources required for what will be a highly elevated experience. You might be able to look past what's happening in the next 5 seconds and think about it with a long-term lens. And that's how we try to run our projects. And I think that ultimately will be the way most of the blockchain industry moves, because everything can't always have a 5-second lens, right? It's got to be all about long-term building.
Yeah, and what's really funny is that people sit there and go, well, gee, with Scotty, I feel so mad. The ROI now to get my money back on a Scotty is like 70 days. I'm like, okay, what other investment vehicle that you're currently involved in gives you a 70-day payback? Like, well, none of them, but still, it's longer than it was. I'm like, all right, so I'm not sure what to, I literally don't know how to respond to that. I don't.
Well, to me, the funniest thing, though, on that is it's a flawed view of ROI.
Right.
Because if I buy a Scotty,
right,
and I quote unquote make my money back in a certain number of days, right?
Yes.
I still own the Scotty.
Right. You've actually doubled it. Right.
So I've actually doubled my money,
right,
because I still have the Scotty that I paid money for. And now the money that I used to buy the Scotty, I now also have.
Right.
So I actually now have twice. So people call that break even, which is not mathematically correct.
Right.
That's actually a doubling when you've made your money back from the asset. You normally break even means you've paid out the money, you have nothing, and then eventually the money comes back, then you've broken even. But here you have an asset that you still hold once the money has been returned to you that you spent to get that asset. That's called doubling. That's not called break even.
Yeah, look, God bless our players and our community, and we have a great community, right? So we've built this really robust set of folks. And by the way, factions is a wonderful opportunity for them to talk smack to one another. But people like Marcos and Caden and Cal, like they sort of come in every day and they help police the messaging and they help educate our players. And so they've been really patient with us. We've been really patient with them, but yet we want to reward and we want to educate. And that's really how you quote unquote sell. You don't want to sell through, hey, come in, we're the biggest, we're the best, we're the fastest, we're this, da, da, da. Like you don't want to do that, right? Like that comes off as inauthentic. Like what we want to do is just say, look, we hear you, we understand you, this is what we believe, this is what we think. And through education, we get a lot more acceptance because people understand that this can be scary. But if we remove that fear factor from them through data and through understanding kind of what we believe and what we think, again, how we educate them, then you're going to get a lot more acceptance tied to kind of the message and the approach that we take. And by the way, our approach is very, very differentiated from other game companies, or other play to earn sort of developers, if you will. Like we don't think like them, we don't act like them, and we don't build like them.
And I think just the ultimate signaling of confidence, right, is having someone like Richard Garfield come in to design a phase of your project, right? When you bring in someone of that caliber to the project, it should be the ultimate signal to the player base that this is something serious, right? So that I think is very important to when you start thinking about the caliber of the team matters, the caliber of the people associated with the project matters. And I think having Richard Garfield involved now is kind of the ultimate signaling that these are big plans, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry, just Snazzy. Let me just throw this one thing out there. And I know we said it before, like, Wax is a very different company. Like we don't bend to the whims of the kind of the status quo that a lot of other companies do, because they don't have kind of the girth that we have as an organization. We're a big company, we're well financed, we have unbelievably talented people. And, because of who we are and what we do, we're able to get, somebody like Richard Garfield. We're also able to not kind of react in a really kind of, whipsaw sort of way around like, oh, everything's crashing, therefore we have no recourse. If we don't make this work, we're dead as an organization. We're not. And so, we don't have the same sensitivities to certain variables that other groups do. We have to stay the course and stick to our kind of philosophy and mentality and be true to our beliefs, and that authenticity and that kind of, really commitment to a quality product, as Lee pointed out, is really what we're all about first and foremost.
It really shows how much you all care about your game that you're developing as opposed to other games that I've been a part of in Discord. You are constantly interacting with everyone, answering questions left and right. You're killing FUD. You're trying to give as much information as you can. It's really, really impactful to watch how you guys engage with the community. And I personally think it's super awesome to see. Your point about Richard Garfield is what made me so excited about being here today. I am a huge Magic the Gathering nerd, and it's incredible to think that somebody like Richard Garfield actually is going to be working on the PvP mode for this, because I don't know how many people are familiar with Magic the Gathering. Below, I'm sure they've heard of it. If they weren't an active player, I'm sure they've seen people playing it before. But I want to let everyone know that Richard Garfield is the person who created Magic the Gathering, which is the most valuable asset of any secondary game market ever. Like, Magic the Gathering's original packages, the beta packs, everything has gone up in price at ridiculous levels. It's been incredible. Everyone still loves playing the game. Literally yesterday, New Capenna came out, which is another game mode that they have, and the player base is massive that got to go in it. It almost crashed the site. It's still relevant today, and it was started, at this point, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm thinking almost 30 years ago.
Yeah, 95, I want to say. 96.
95. Right? Oh my gosh.
Something like that.
It's still
not
relevant.
That I was alive when it was created. My friends who lived in that era told me then, but I wasn't alive then. So
I'm gonna let you in on a secret. That was actually the year I was born. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh my god! Never mind.
But that's how amazing
YouTube.
it is.
Actually, there's a lot of fun pack opening videos when once in a while someone decides to rip open an old Magic the Gathering pack.
Yeah,
those just like old Pokemon packs. When you see people do those pack openings, it is fun to watch.
Oh yeah, and I've got the first 7 or 8 collections completed in a binder somewhere in storage, like Ice Age, Arabian Nights, Urza Sagas, Urza's Legacies, Ice. I want to say Winter Heart. I can't remember them all. It's been a million years, but I'm like you, Snazzy. I'm a massive Magic nerd, and that really opened up my eyes to, because I was a classic, video gamer through and through, and I'd never played any kind of collectible card game. I didn't know what it was, and at some point I just got swept up into it and got lost. And when you kind of see that game in action, and then you get to talk to Richard and his big beautiful brain, you get engaged with it. It's hard not to fanboy candidly, and I've been around a lot of famous people and celebrities and athletes, but Richard really, really, really strikes a chord with me. So I was a little apologetic the first time we met. I'm like, I'm so sorry, but blah, 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 blah. He's like, all right, I get it. I get this all the time. Let's talk about blockchain brawlers. I'm like,
that's
okay.
One of the crazy things about this project, by the way. It's like talking about meeting your heroes. It's like first we get to work with Ric Flair. Mm-hmm. Then we get to work with Richard Garfield.
Unbelievable.
It's like the people that have had their hands on this project in one way or another. It's like legend after legend. Yeah. It's been pretty incredible.
Yeah, who's next? That's what I wonder. Who's the next legend we bring in? It's something worth talking about at some point.
Good question.
Well, also, I feel like there's a potential here is what legend can you bring out of blockchain brawlers too? I feel like those are about to become real questions, because this is going to be a PvP game that is going to be historical. And I think it sounds like it'll have room for esports play. What are you guys thinking about tournaments?
Yeah, look, I think that we kind of teased that notion. And we didn't say it just because we wanted to get a reaction. I think we believe that's where it's going. We've talked about a lot in terms of having these monthly global competitions where literally the best, most unique, most interesting prizes are going to kind of come from. And we think about it as kind of the first 3 weeks of the month. This kind of sets up like a series of qualifiers There will be things you need to enter. You'll need probably Brawl. You'll probably need Gold. You'll probably need NFTs of a certain value, a certain level. And then you'll compete for the first 2 weeks to try to make a qualification round. And then feels like the last week, again, I'm making up a little bit on the fly, but it's probably a bracketed single elimination tournament of 128 or 256 players where kind of the Sweet 16 gets broadcast and we have professional shoutcasters that stream live on Twitch. And again, that's where the biggest and best prizes are thought to be. And we're going to do kind of monthly themes like we talked about in other interviews, like how the WWE has Royal Rumble and SummerSlam and King of the Ring and all kind of ladders up to WrestleMania. I think we see a similar kind of rollout in terms of content and programming. We think this is very esports oriented. And again, not to sort of talk about the prizes too much, but one of the prizes that we talk about all the time, which is very real, which I think we're going to do, is if you win either one of the tournaments, one of the prizes will be a 1-of-1 legendary in your likeness or something that you designed with our design team, where the only person in the world who has this legendary character, and again, our legendaries sell for $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. Like, you've now won something that has your mug on it if you decide, outfitted how you want to be outfitted, named whatever you want to name it. Like, that's something that money can't buy. And that kind of exclusive reward is so unbelievably, we think, compelling to our players, because when we're in communities and we see what they're doing and we see what they want to know, and like, I can't afford it. Like, yeah, but you can win it if you're good enough. And your strategy works out of other people's strategies. Like, this could be you, and you're the only person in the entire world who has this unbelievably rare and valuable asset. Like, that's what PvP is all about. Those are the kind of rewards and recognition that we're talking about bringing to the equation. And by the way, you're internet famous. It's getting live streamed. There's shoutcasters talking about how amazing you are, and like, that's where this all is going to go. And we want.
Are you telling me, Mike? Are you telling me that not even FS could just get one of these?
No, FS can't just show up and everybody falls at his feet. FS will have to have.
He's going to have to
play. He'll have to be good. He'll have to outsmart, outwit, outperform everybody. Like, it's not just a fait accompli. Like, if FS gets a 1-of-1 in his likeness, it's because he's earned it and he has won it, not because he has the most and the best 1-of-1 collection in the entire history of the world. That is true.
So but the question is so when you go and make that brawler in your likeness as the winner, is FS going to make you an offer you can't refuse? So then you're 1-of-1 of yourself is added to the FS collection.
Yeah, Marcos in Discord said FS will just buy his opponent. He'll literally pay off his way to win, which is another funny way to handle it. The funny thing about FS is everybody's like, oh, that's William Quigley or that's this person, that person. It's nobody affiliated with Wax. But if he wanted to do a total like baller move, he could somehow win the event if he's good enough. And then he could design the 1-of-1 in the likeness of William Quigley to further fuel that narrative and have everybody just lose their minds.
That's true. That's true.
Right. I will say on a stack of Bibles, swearing on the lives of my children, that FS is nobody affiliated with Wax in the least.
That is correct.
It's funny.
Nice.
So I was talking.
It is nice
Lee,
to have big supporters.
Lee, we're talking about kind of forward-looking things, and a good friend of ours, Mace Massacre, who posts in Discord all the time, says, Mike, are you prepared for Lee to disclose things that you haven't publicly announced yet, and you're left scrambling on the AMA to try to cover and spin whatever it is that he just said? I'm like, I'm not prepared for that, but I should be. So thanks for the heads up. So I have no idea what little tidbits you're going to drop on people that I'm not planning to talk about. But I guess this is that's why live programming is so interesting, right?
That's right. I just can't help myself.
We should talk about the future a little bit, about what the future holds, don't you think?
Sure.
Oh, please do. I'm so excited. Give me all the details.
Well, look, we already talked a little bit. So let's talk about May, and let's talk about kind of May and June and what the next kind of 8 weeks looks like. So, we've already talked about kind of the audio tracks coming next Tuesday. And so the thing that players will see is they will see a new audio player being displayed where the player card is. So you can kind of fast forward, reverse, pause, control the audio there in a granular way. You can turn on shuffle, and it'll be 24, I believe, or 24 tracks in total, 23 new tracks. And so that's going to be really, really cool. We've talked about kind of avatars and creating kind of names for your account and potential of frames. The really cool things about those frames is that when you win some of these competitions, we'll give you a kind of an exclusive frame that will show kind of a title that you will hold, national title, metaverse title, world titles, all to be determined. But that title will be a traveling frame, a traveling title, if you will. So you can win a kind of community-based tournament 1 month, and then have the belt taken away from you the next month. So everybody's kind of always fighting for whether it's heavyweight champ, metaverse champ, intercontinental champ, whatever we decide to call those belts. Like that'll be part of the gamification, part of the experience. And then and we can't have tournaments until we have that leaderboard stuff squared away. So again, let's be clear, that's kind of the step function of the order that these things have to go in is leaderboards first and then tournaments. But then last but not least, we should talk about a Scotty Byrne event, coming in May. So we don't know what it is. We don't know when it is. We have some ideas. But I'm telling you today that we are committed to creating an event for players to turn all of their Scotties into berries at some point to be determined.
So that's exciting. I also hear rumors.
Oh no! Here we go. Here we go. Do you want to slack me first to say what you're about to say? I feel like curveball coming. Hold on. Let me sit down, put on my helmet and my jock strap, so I'm ready for this.
Here comes the chair.
Oh boy!
I have heard.
Oh God!
That there might even be a new brawler coming to town.
Oh my God! Another one of one, maybe, or something different?
Oh no! I mean, a new brawler. There's a guy out there. I just heard that he's got a beef with Scotty. And he's looking to lay the smackdown on Scotty.
Be careful, because the Scotty gang takes things very, very personally. And you may upset Scotty the Lottery, who is a passionate Scotty owner in our Discord community. You better not threaten Scotties anywhere with a potential rival.
I'm just saying, Scotty might need to watch his back, because there could be a new player coming to town that is going to have his sights set on Scotty.
Last hero on Discord just posted Scotty Small Eyes ? He should have posted Scotty Narrow Eyes. Would have been a much better joke there. But maybe next time, Last Hero. No, it will not be called Scotty Narrow Eyes, Scotty Small Eyes, Scotty Big Eyes, Scotty Any Eyes. But the Scotty gang, maybe they should feel threatened. I think I do know what you're talking about. And that will be very interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, it's gonna.
I can't believe you brought that up. I should have planned for this. I can't believe you said that.
Oh yeah, there's always a new heel that can come to town that he's going to put Scotty in his place.
Oh my God! Yeah, it's possible. Wouldn't that be interesting? I wonder what all this means. I'll have to look into this further. You're always planning things that I don't know about.
Yeah, it's going to be
blue balls. Oh my God!
It is going to be a feud for the ages.
I love it. Look, a little competition at the top of the chain, a little competition at the bottom of the food chain. I think it's all healthy.
That's right.
That's great.
Oh yeah, I see the Discord starting to move a lot. I actually know, Mike, don't you have a trivia announcement for the Discord members?
We're going to do a trivia competition. I guess, Snazzy, the question is do we want to do it before or after the Q&A?
I say that we probably go ahead and give them the trivia question, and then we'll start bringing up people to ask questions.
Okay, so now, great, let's do that. Do we want to announce the prize before the trivia question, or do we want to announce the prize after the trivia question to let them know what they've won?
I think that we do it afterwards to let them know what they won, just so that the hype's in the air. They don't know what they're doing, but the ones who participate are rewarded heavily.
Got it. Okay. Okay, guys. So we're going to, just like last time, we had a trivia contest. It was wrestling based. This is the same. This will be wrestling based, but this question will not be as easy. I'll be watching Discord Gen Chat. The first person I see to answer this correctly, exactly, will get this prize. And so, Snaz, why don't you go ahead and let the question rip?
Okay, here it is. What is the exact name of the documentary that The Rick saw from Channel 4? That The Rock saw on Channel 4 of the UK that got him interested in producing a film about being a professional wrestler?
The exact title of the documentary The Rock saw on Channel 4 in the UK that inspired him to make a film about becoming a professional wrestler. The exact wording. Okay. We'll watch Gen Chat. We'll see. We want to do it a little bit harder question because last time Arcade Gamer and a bunch of others got things like so unbelievably fast that it really took the drama out of the actual trivia competition. And so we thought we'd go a little bit deeper, a little bit harder, and see. No, so far, no. Professor Wax, that's not the right answer. Crypto Pros, WTF is also not the right answer. Rock in a Hard Place is also not the right answer, Nemo. Sorry. Nope, it's not Beyond the Mat. It's not the wrestler, Scotty the Lottery. Yeah, you guys keep guessing. Okay, why don't we move on to the Q&A, and then we will interrupt the Q&A portion when somebody posts the right answer. No, Pedro, it's not Rocky Balboa or the British wrestler. You guys,
sounds great.
Google is your friend. I shouldn't have to. Oh, we have a winner. We have an exact winner. It is G Graph. Congratulations, G Graph. You just beat out Choose the Right, and Choose the Right, you were close, but you weren't exactly right. G Graph is exactly right. The answer was The Wrestlers Fighting with My Family was the documentary that came out that inspired The Rock's movie called Fighting with My Family. So congrats. So, Snaz, what does G Graph win for his efforts?
All right, I'm going to do the drums. The winner gets the #1 mint gold bar. #1. This thing needs to go inside of a special wallet. It needs to be put away. Do not blend this gold bar. It's the #1. It's going to be legendary, and you just got it.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
so the
not
mint one of the gold bar NFT.
Oh my God, how sad would that be to accidentally use the mint 1 gold bar along with your other golds in crafting? You gotta put that thing aside.
You really do. And it's we're at 178,000 gold bars minted to date. By the time the mining event is done, I believe we'll be somewhere north of probably 500,000 gold bars. Again, depending on how everything performs, like you'll have mint #1 of something that may have, more than 500 million that have been printed to date. So that's a really huge deal. Congrats.
Yes,
there's a little
congratulations.
controversy that Scotty the Lottery is saying that Graf copied his answer. We know that he did not, but we do appreciate the drama. We've checked the tape. And Scotty the Lottery, that is not correct. Your Discord brothers are absolutely crushing you right now for making such an insinuation. All right, let's go to Q&A. We got about 15 minutes left.
Yes, we have Crypto Kumas who had requested. Anybody else, please go ahead and request. And Kumas, go ahead with your question.
What's going on, everybody? What's up, Snaz? What's up, Brawlers, Wags, Mike? What's going on, everyone? I have two questions real quick. As someone that's kind of outside of the BCB space, I'm not too familiar with it. Definitely familiar with the WAG space, but just curious, like what is something that from someone's standpoint that's outside of the blockchain brawlers, and we look into these things and we were kind of curious. Like the price points and things like that obviously wouldn't make sense to someone that's outside of the space, but so I guess one is my question is there going to be any future brawlers that might have a lower entry level, or maybe almost like a kind of fractionalized brawler where you have a better opportunity of getting in on something like this, to where we could see maybe a little bit more, just like I said, a lower entry point? I'm just curious if you guys were looking at things like that. And then also, even if it's not that, what is the purpose of the brawlers being so expensive? Does that help benefit the economy? Does that help benefit the players? Just curious as how the whole system works for you guys.
Crypto, I feel like Lee planted that question with you and had you ask it intentionally. There's some kind of collusion going on here, I'll be honest with you. But Lee, why don't you go ahead and take this planted question and answer it?
I'm going to answer the second part first and the first part second.
Okay.
So the second part, why are they expensive? That's called supply and demand, baby. We're not the ones that set the prices. The market sets the prices. And so, when we sold these, we sold those brawlers in packs for $350 that included the ring and your brawler, right? So, now getting a Scotty and you had a chance at higher level brawlers. But even if you just got a Scotty and a common ring in those packs, right? The cost to get those on the market today, it's roughly $150 for the common ring, roughly $600 for the Scotty. So that combination goes for like $750 now. We sold them for $350, and you had actually a chance at getting a higher level ring and a higher level brawler in those packs. Mm-hmm. So we sold it at what we thought for the NFT space was a reasonable, starting price, while keeping things pretty scarce. And then supply and demand kind of takes over. So we don't have a lot of control over what supply and demand dictates, but people sell those based on opportunity cost, right? So they price them based on what they could otherwise earn from them instead of selling. So if the value of the Brawl and Gold you're getting is X, then that would indicate how much you'd have to charge to part with that asset, right? Mm-hmm. So, I think that's what's dictating the price. In terms of will there be an entry, a lower entry point coming out? Maybe the Scotty feud I mentioned might have something to do with that.
Mm-hmm. I think, careful, let's not give away too much.
I'm just saying, Scotty's got to watch his back.
Oh boy. Well, his eyes are wide, so he can watch his back and his sides at the same time.
That is true. He has excellent peripheral vision.
Yes. God, that's funny.
All right. I see we have a new speaker up. Would you like to go ahead and ask your question?
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. I'll go ahead and step down here. Definitely appreciate you having me up and giving me some info behind the scenes. So love to the whole wax space. Love to Snaz, everyone here. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Crypto.
Thanks.
Thanks, Kumas. All right, it seems like they stepped down. If anybody else would like to come up and ask a question, please do. I'm actually going to pull a question that we had submitted earlier about the Blockchain Brawler updates. This one comes from Call Me Nemo 491. Says, when PvP arrives, what happens to gear and rings? Do they become collector items? And what happens to unused items?
Can I just say this is unfair? Like, Nemo asks me about 8,000 questions a day in Discord, and I answer all of them, and now he gets to hog the airspace? Come on, Nemo. Don't be so selfish. Yeah, look, so the short answer is, and we've been public about this, is that we're not exactly clear what role rings and gear have in PvP. The question is, well, will the uses matter? Well, how does this all kind of lay out? And the short answer is we're still balancing PvP. There may be a role for rings and gear. I doubt it because they are durable and consumable. There certainly is a clear and obvious role for the NFTs. But in terms of the durable goods, we're not quite sure how that works yet. But as soon as we know, we'll tell everybody. So you're not left kind of out of position of the last day when you could have used it or not, and you didn't because you're holding your shit to the PvP utility, and we didn't communicate that with you in time. Like, that won't happen. But we actually don't know how they play out today. My gut is they actually don't have a role in PvP, but I will say, don't hold me to that right now.
Yeah, I mean, since those are consumables, and especially since in our economic tweaks we've shortened the number of uses for them, people aren't going to be too far out, right, in terms of rings and gear, because they have a pretty short useful life as consumable items. So your brawlers, your gold, and your brawl are all critical for PvP. Maybe there's a room for the consumables, but yeah, I think like Mike said, those are short duration items that are primarily for the mining events at the moment. But if as we're moving towards PvP, we realize there's some good use for them, then we'll let the community know.
Well, thank you for answering that question for us. We have two new people coming up to speak to ask questions. The first one we have is Bagholder. Would you like to go ahead and ask your question, Bagholder?
Yes, thanks for having me up. Alrighty, my question for today was if there's any key elements or game mechanics from Magic the Gathering that you could see kind of work with brawlers.
Yeah, look, I think the thing that Richard's made clear to us is that he wants there to be kind of multiple levels of play, right? A lot of different depth, a lot of strategy, but kind of easy to consume or easy to learn for players, which I think is how he would explain Magic the same way, in that you're playing the man, but you're also playing the cards, or you're playing your opponent. So a lot like poker, in that you're kind of trying to read scenarios, understand the odds and what have you. In a deck which involves random draws, like our decks in our games, because it's a card game, we'll have random draws as well. But the depth is there, but it's maybe not obvious until you play it more and you understand different strategies. And so there's this real kind of layered experience. And again, at some point we will be mapping to kind of ELO or MMRs to make sure that the matches are fair. We'll also have buckets that are tied to, am I gold player? Am I silver player? Am I bronze? Am I iron? Am I challenger? Am I diamond? Am I premier? Like all those things, like those are constructs that are very common in esports. We'll want to map to that, maybe not on day one, but eventually. And so there's a lot of things that you'll see that kind of esports, card play, head-to-head play will be brought in. Whether it's kind of, there's not this mana and tapping and first strike, things like that will not exist, as far as I'm to understand. But everything that we do will map towards kind of a brawler or a wrestling kind of aesthetic and ideology. So that for us is really the fun of taking this game that he's been building and designing this game in prototypical or prototyping phases for the last kind of 10 to 12 months, trying to get the balance right, trying to get the kind of the interplay, the strategy, the complexities, they're all there. And he's been working on this for quite a while. It wasn't just like, hey, Richard, what can you come up with in a couple of weeks? Like there's a lot of thought that goes into this. And if you understand kind of the brilliance of him, there's nothing that is just like, knee jerk. Oh, well, let's just throw this out there and cross our fingers. Like it's a lot of depth that goes into this. And so when we talk, we don't talk about the game as much. We talk about balance and how the players are going to succeed in multiple different paths to having a really incredible experience. So maybe more words than you wanted, but it's a great question without a short answer.
Yeah, thank you. No, I can't wait. I can't wait to play it. Thanks, Mike.
Of course. By the way, I love looking at your icons as Bag Ho, because it doesn't show the LDER. So I'm glad your name isn't actually Bag Ho, but thank you for your question.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike.
Of course.
I actually did have to click on his thing because I felt uncomfortable saying Bag Ho at first.
Oh, goodness.
Okay, cheers, guys. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Bye.
I think you did bring up a good point, though, Mike, on terms of, the long view. Again, that kind of reinforces the long view.
Right.
We always have surprises in store, right? Whether it's for brawlers or for Wax. I mean, we always have things cooking. And never just sitting around without something special brewing that'll be some future piece of excitement. So yeah, I mean, we're always planning so far ahead. And just like that with the Richard announcement, we got so many other cool things that are going to come.
Lee, it's so funny because when I ever see the channel, we talk about, you refer to me as a FUD crusher. Like I like to get the F out, right? Like I'm fine with UD. I'm not okay with fun. Like fear, like there's no room for fear in this project. Unknown and doubt, I get it because, you don't always know everything. But those don't have to be negatives. That's a kind of a teaching moment for us. But the thing that's funny to me is when we put something out, people go, oh, that's it. Like, no, that's not it. Like, there's so much going on all the time. And they just assume what they see or what they read is everything in totality. Like, there's so many things cooking and so many things getting built. Like, we have a creative services team. We have a front-end team. We have a back-end team. We have a prototyping team. We have all these different teams and groups, designers, creators, what have you, that are always figuring out how to add to the experience. And so when people go, gosh, I can't believe that's all there is. Like, no, that's all you've seen. That's not all there is. And I think it's a good point. And it always surprises me when people get surprised, because at what point do like Wax has done it again? At what point is that become the expectation and not the exception?
Well, and we have probably one of the strongest biz dev teams in all of crypto. I mean, look at the brands that we as Wax have worked with. And now in Brawlers alone, between Ric Flair and Garfield as the first two announcements for that game, we do deals. That's what we do. We do deals constantly. Mm-hmm. And, it's always something exciting around the corner.
Great. We have a little bit of time left. Snaz, who else can we speak to live, or what question can we answer from the collective intelligence of our community?
Well, we do actually have Alanio here, and would you like to go ahead and ask your question?
Hey guys, I'm talking from France. So here is afternoon. I don't know what's going on over there, but hope all goes well. I am an early investor actually on this token. I never played the game. However, I strongly believe in technology and specifically crypto. So your project looking quite fantastic and very much basically tempting to get involved with. In the early journey of your token after launch, it got actually 8 times more increase, and then all of a sudden lost 90% of its value. So my question here is, as a non-player but as an investor, how would you assure the value of your token is going to be stabilized and stay on we know the crypto is, has got up and down, and it's got dump and bump and stuff, but losing 90% of its value in the last, I don't know, let's say 3 weeks, it's a huge dump. So how would you assure the investors that they're not losing the capital once they invest on your token? Thank you.
I mean, with crypto, there's nothing we can control, right? In terms of the price, all we can do is continue delivering against a very solid project. We've delivered consistently in terms of gameplay. We've delivered consistently in the NFT assets, and I mean, we did just burn 99.9% of supply, right? So we've continued to deliver absolutely everything we can to provide value to our community. And the rest is up to supply and demand. It's up to the market. And there's nothing we can do to directly influence what you're talking about more than just continuing to execute. That's all we can do. If people are going to dump despite excellent execution, there's nothing we can do to stop them. But the supply is fixed. We've removed inflation in supply from the table. I mean, one of the biggest question marks in play to earn is inflation of the token. We've now burned 99.9% of the supply. So inflation is coming to an end in that token, because as soon as the mining phase is done, you're now into the PvP phase, and we're continuing to execute there. So unlike the stock market, where crypto prices are tied to some definite metric, there is no PE ratio in crypto, right? There's nothing where if this were a stock, you could come on and you could beat us up that our earnings per share don't look right, or how are you going to get your earnings per share up? Because that would then translate into something that adjusts your value, but that doesn't exist in crypto. So there's no lever we can pull that's going to tell you what you want me to say. All we can do is do what we've been doing, which is continue to execute in an excellent manner, continue to spread the word about our project and our token, and continue to fine-tune tokenomics to benefit the community in the best way possible. And the first step of that was removing inflation from the table, burning us down to 1 billion tokens. That was a major move. And that's all we can do is execute, and beyond that, the rest is really up to the market to recognize that excellence of execution.
I would actually like to add to that too. Part of the way that ecosystems and environments and tokens affect long-term value and hold long-term value and build that long-term value is by maintaining relevance. And the best way for blockchain brawlers to maintain the relevance and keep building that relevance is by introducing a long-term playable game, such as the PvP game that they're wanting to introduce. And I think that is just such a class move for this token, the NFTs associated with it. I think that's going to be the long-term play. Like they've talked about before, there is going to be Richard Garfield adding to the mix for the development of this game. And Magic the Gathering is still one of the most well-received, well-played, well-known games in existence of gaming. And so I really see the long-term relevance of this game being built with such a solid foundation. I personally don't think there's anything to worry about. I'm hodling.
Me too. Hodl all day long. I want to win the legendary 1-of-1 brawler. I don't know if I'm prohibited from competing, but I'm going to try to win. I haven't won anything yet. I haven't even made a single
Thanks,
wipe,
guys,
which
for
everybody's tired of hearing me talk about.
Thanks, guys, for the answer. It's I really appreciate, and also I'm sure other listeners also trust in your basically effort and technology. However, there are two things actually I understand as kind of investor, not very successful investor, but as somebody who's been watching crypto in the last 2 years, that in order for a token or a coin to doing quite well, the two type of areas that usually tokens are going through in order to get successful increase. One is marketing, which we've actually witnessed a token called Shiba, how through marketing is actually bumped without much utilities behind, or something like, for instance, a green metaverse token, GMT, which is increased magnificent in the last 2 months. I would say something about 37 times more increase, basically just because of the type of technology and the facilities is providing. So I just want to know actually where you're standing here at the moment in order to put all your effort for the investors to win actually what they invest on. So whether you've been working a lot on marketing, or this is what your aim is, or you're doing mostly on the technology side. Thanks.
Yeah, and we have lots of plans on the marketing side that we're working to execute on. We have been having a decent amount of marketing so far, through partners such as OKX and KuCoin and Gate.io and others. We've already been doing a decent amount of marketing, and soon we'll have additional campaigns. We've been doing marketing on lots of relevant sites like CryptoSlam and DappRadar and others, where there's been banners and pop-ups and all sorts of things to raise awareness in recent weeks. And we have plenty of other things cooking. We're doing what we can to market. I think, to be honest with you, looking at Shibu and things like that and trying to credit like there's some sort of genius marketing, I think is a fallacy, to be honest. I think when a token goes up in price, people make an assumption that something was done that was some sort of marketing strategy. But, point me to it. Point me to what was done before the price went up. And I think 9 times out of 10, people actually wouldn't be able to. It's just the nature of crypto. Certain things get pumped sometimes, and it's not necessarily because there was some genius marketing campaign behind it or something. It's the nature of this industry. So it's not necessarily a fair comparison to say, do what Shibu did. It's like, well, tell me what Shibu did. And, and I think most people would struggle to actually articulate that. I think other people would say that it was a token closely held by a small number of whales that pumped it. And I think that's often the case with a lot of these things. And it's not based on some marketing strategy that was executed in some brilliant way. But we are continuing to execute on marketing. We have a lot more marketing planned to expand the player base, and the player base will drive demand for the token, as the token will be needed for the game. And that's the primary thing that is actually under our control. Whereas a lot of those other factors you mentioned are literally not under a project's control. It's just been that some group of whales aggregated it and pumped it, and it didn't necessarily have anything to do with anything the project themselves were doing.
Lee, I think it's important to note that we're literally in week 5 of what we think is a 5-year project. And so we've always said intentionally we're keeping the audience small to make sure there's no exploits. We found an exploit, we're working towards a balance. We now feel like we have that shored up. So now, as if you hold us to our word, now we think that we're in a better position to maybe market to acquire some more users. Marketing is not something that we're not kind of like, we're very pro marketing. Like, we understand the value of it and we understand the need for it. So let's be clear, right? We know, but also understand that we know the timing of marketing matters. So there's certain things that you want to do. Like, we didn't want to bring a ton of players in on day one to bring in a game that was potentially had exploits or didn't have a lot of, like, feel like once you go out and do some traditional kind of marketing on gamer sites and bring in a bunch of gamers, well, a bunch of gamers will come in and see this like, well, this isn't a game, I don't want to play this. So when PvP kicks in, okay, great, then let's go out and get those traditional gamers. We've now adjusted to tokenomics. Now it seems like a good time to go back to all those exchanges and to investors and whatnot and get that message out in front of them and do a lot of things in that regard. So I would encourage you to be patient with us, because the things that you think are beneficial that will work to kind of give value to the token, we're very aware of, right? And we are going to do something at some point when it makes sense. So know that your pleas are not falling on deaf ears, but it's something that we think about kind of every day, as how do we make sure that we're positioned correctly and we're set up to be successful. So be patient with us. Know that we are doing the right things for the right reasons, and you're always free to ask questions. But know that we are all over the topics and the subjects that you care most about.
I think those were fantastic answers to the question. I know that we have been over the hour by 10 minutes, and we had already brought up another speaker for a final question. So I think this would be a good time to take the final question and then maybe wrap up the conversation. So on that note, would Sound Dr. Genie like to ask your question?
Hey, thank you for the microphone. How's everybody doing? Just one quick question. Are you guys planning, since the project is going to 4 years, are you guys planning to launch this also on PlayStation and Xbox, or is it just going to be exclusive PC game? Thank you.
That's a great question. So, Microsoft and Sony both have and Nintendo as well, have very interesting stances on kind of NFT gaming and what does it mean in their world. And the thing that we have found consistently is that when we talk to these groups, they know there's a there there. They're not sure what it looks like or what it is or when it is, but they're hesitant to be aggressive today. But you should know that those conversations do take place. They're very low level. There is nothing that is imminent. But know that we're always trying to make sure that our game is playable everywhere it can be. And so the things we think about, the things we talk about is we've got a kind of a browser-based game today. Well, will PvP involve a downloadable client? Well, can we do PvP inside of an app on a mobile device? What does that mean for, PlayStation Network or Xbox Live or, running on the Nintendo Switch? It's all up for conversation. So I would tell you the answer today is no. But I will tell you that with this long lens approach that we take, never assume that these things are off the table. They're just not. But we don't have them in the offing today. But know that we're aware of it, and we're very much wanting to make sure that this game has exposure to as many players as possible. We're at decent numbers today for building that foundation, and then we'll figure out kind of how to accelerate the exposure to the rest of the world when the time is right.
Thank you for your question, Doctor.
All right, everyone, that is our time for today. I want to thank everyone who joined our space today, submitted questions through Twitter, and came out to participate. And a special thank you to Mike and Lee for taking the time to join us today. Have a great weekend, everybody, and keep brawling.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.